There are no healthy arguments. Arguments leave someone feeling disrespected, wrong, untrusting, hurt, and wanting to give up in the relationship or wanting to give up on the issue at hand. Arguing is a destructive and unhealthy tool. Hello, I'm Karen Seitz, and this is the Happy Wife School. This podcast is for married women to realize that we are responsible for our happiness, that no one and no thing can make us happy, and that our husbands are not the source of our unhappiness. In each episode, I red pill married women to know that we are the problem in our marriages to good men. For the good men, this podcast will wake you up to the realities of your wife's woman ways, to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to her emasculation in a constructive, caring way. Before we dive into today's episode, a couple reminders. My message is meant for common and usual marital issues. My podcast is not intended for abusive, violent, or compulsive behaviors in a marriage that are threatening or dangerous. Also, please take a second to visit my website and learn more about my courses, which offer solutions for married women and good men. You can find the link in the description below. With all that being said, let's get started. Today, we have a Q&A, but similar to the last time when I did a Q&A, we are just going to do one question because as we got into it, realized this is a really common issue and struggle in marriage. So I'm just going to be answering the one question today. It's a great question. Before I get into it, just a reminder, when I do a Q&A and I answer a question that one of you has sent in to me, it's important for everyone to know I haven't talked to this person. I don't know the ins and outs of their marriage. I haven't talked to their spouse. I am using their question as a jumping off point to talk about an important issue in marriage and how to resolve it and understanding why it happens and why it's there and using it as a way to reiterate and discuss the important principles and messages that I share here on the Happy Wife School. So I always like to set that up when we do a Q&A. And with that being said, we are going to get into it. So here's the question that someone sent me. So the question is, and thank you for the man that sent this in, what does arguing look like with a happy wife? What does arguing look like with a happy wife? My wife stuffs and stacks issues she has with me, then stonewalls for sometimes months on end. I am left to wonder, what did I do wrong? I told her we could deal with each issue and get beyond them without harming each other in the marriage. So, how would conflict resolution look differently if we both claimed responsibility for our happiness? How would conflict resolution look differently if we both claimed responsibility for our own happiness? What a great question. So where we're going to start with this is what this man wants to know and other good men want to know who are hearing this question and thinking, I could have written that question in. When you have a wife who stuffs the issues, stonewalls for months on end if the issues get brought up, or she never brings the issues up because she's stuffing them away and suppressing them and sweeping them under the rug. And this used to be me in my marriage, and I have to catch myself because I can still go there from time to time as a woman. But if this is your wife and she's consistently dodging the issues, sweeping them under the rug, not willing to come to the table with you to resolve the issues and have conflict resolution, what good men want to know and women in this position want to know what this means. And this question is, his wife and a woman in this position is unhappy. She is unhappy in herself. And I define unhappy as having an unhealthy relationship with yourself and not feeling good about who you are. There's a constant lack or want in life, and you're never satisfied, content, or fulfilled, and a woman unhappy in herself lives in camp victim, blaming others for her issues and challenges in life, why she is the way she is in the context of marriage, why she has the problems with her husband, and why she's so unhappy in her marriage with her husband. And from that place of being unhappy in ourselves, we can't live in what I talk about, can't take responsibility, where we are accountable, willing to look at ourselves, willing to be wrong, willing to come together with our husband to solve the issues. We're incapable of living there. So in this situation of us not coming to the table to resolve conflict, we have to actually create issues. We have to create issues and problems and maintain the issues and problems to maintain our unhappiness. Conflict resolution isn't anything that we embrace as women when we are unhappy in ourselves, because we have to have things that make us unhappy. So in this case, and in this question where this gentleman says, my wife stuffs and stacks issues. That's such a great verbiage. Stuffs and stacks issues is exactly what we do as women. And we want to stack the issues up, because then there's our proof and reasons and excuses for why we are so unhappy. And in that, a good man is left wondering, like this man shared in his question, what did I do wrong? What am I not doing? What do I need to be doing? What's going on? Why is she stonewalling me? In this case, for months, that's a woman on the higher end spectrum of these issues. And what I talk about are woman ways. So it's right there in the question. We stuff and stack issues because we have to create our unhappiness and have our unhappiness reflected back to us in our marriage. Again, so we can live in camp victim and blame our husbands and not have to be exposed and look at ourselves. So let's talk about arguing. Let's talk about arguing and what arguing looks like with a happy wife. Spoiler alert, when you have a happy wife, and again, I talk about marriages between a woman and a good man because as women, we all have these issues that I talk about week to week on a spectrum. We have these issues on a spectrum. So when a good man is married to a wife who's happy in herself, again, spoiler alert, there are no arguments. There's no reason to argue. Because if your wife is happy in herself, she wants to solve the problems, even if she might throw a little temper tantrum here and there and have a little resistance, speaking about myself. But as happy women, we want the issue solved. We want to have a happy marriage. That's why I have my sign that continues to say, happy wives create happy marriages. And there's no need to argue because we're able to come to the table, and with a good man being a natural problem solver and wanting the issues solved, wanting to talk about the facts, wanting to compromise, want to talk about what are the solutions we could have to this problem, and is excited to get to the solution and solve things and keep moving things forward. That's fundamental to a good man's nature. And a wife is happy, they can come to the table and they can talk things out, get through the issues and come to a solution, and there's never any need to argue. So what we want to understand in that context between a marriage between a woman and a good man is that arguments in a marriage come from a woman needing to be right. Arguments in a marriage come from a woman needing to be right. It's like a picture I saw a long time ago of a newlywed couple, and they're holding these pillows, and hers says Mrs. Right and his says Mr. Always Wrong. That's what we create in a marriage as women, that we are always right, and any of the issues or problems or the things we don't like are what our husbands are creating, and we are in a constant position to make our husbands wrong. So that's where arguing comes from, is as women always needing to be right. Good men are naturally non-argumentative. Good men are naturally non-argumentative. They're emotionally even-keeled. They're good-natured. They're looking to compromise. They're looking for solutions. And if a mature adult can come to the table and talk the issues through and look at the different possibilities for solutions and be willing to compromise, there's no reason to argue. The purpose of arguing is not to resolve. The purpose of arguing is not to resolve problems. It's to prove one is right. And it's a defending of one's self-righteousness, of what they believe to be true and right, black and white. No other ideas or opinions or thoughts welcome to the table. And that's the environment we create as women. As we are constantly trying to prove we are right. That's why many good men struggle with their wives being so highly defensive. And that's why we argue. So there are marriage experts out there that are proponents of healthy arguing. And I have a very different perspective. Being a happy wife and being married to a good man, I honestly, as I was thinking through these notes and going over them and fleshing things out with my mentor, we collaborate on my lives. I sat there and I honestly cannot remember the last time Adam and I had an argument. I chuckled and laughed and made a joke. I said, the closest thing we've ever had to an argument in a very, very long time is if I'm stuck in one of my own woman ways and stuck on a track, and Adam might slightly elevate his voice of like, Karen, back off. Or Karen, I got this. I got it figured out. I know what I'm going to do, because it's usually me being in his lane trying to tell him how to do something. So I can't remember the last time we argued. So I have a different perspective than marriage experts who think arguing is healthy in a marriage. There are no healthy arguments. Arguments leave someone feeling disrespected, wrong, untrusting, hurt, and wanting to give up in the relationship or wanting to give up on the issue at hand. It's a destructive and unhealthy tool. Arguing is a destructive and unhealthy tool, because two healthy, mature adults should be able to come to the table, to talk things out, talk the issue out, each talk about their concerns, and be able to solve the issue without arguing. The foundation of arguing is chaos, self-righteousness, stubbornness, and an unwillingness to see another side, even if you disagree. And some good men out there listening might think, well, I argue with my wife. And I want you to think about what's happening and leading up to that you begin to argue with your wife. And you will be able to see, how does she push and provoke you and lead you into that place of arguing, that if she came to the table as a mature, healthy, reasonable adult, would you ever get to that point of arguing? And I would argue that you would get clarity of, I would never argue with my wife. If she was willing to come to the table and talk things out and hear me and my concerns, I'm going to hear her and her concerns, because that's the nature of a good man. And she was willing to compromise and embrace your ideas towards solution, because you're naturally going to embrace some of her ideas towards solution, because again, that's a fundamental nature of good men. I promise you, you would never argue. There'd be no reason to. Healthy adults should be able to solve an issue without arguing. The experts don't know that there's another option, and they don't take into account the perspective that I teach on the channel of a woman with a good man and a woman's unhappiness in our nature to emasculate, gaslight, and manipulate a good man. And that's the problem in the marriage, and then our unwillingness to solve problems. Those things aren't taken into account. So there's another option. When a woman is happy in herself and willing to work with her husband to find solutions and find compromise to the problems, be willing to embrace when her husband brings up an issue that needs to be solved and not make him wrong in that and defend herself in all the ways that she's right and he's wrong, there's really no need to argue. We need to understand that for women, arguing is just another tool for emasculation of a good man to leave her husband feeling wrong, deflated, and weak. Arguing is an emasculation tool for a woman against a good man to leave him feeling wrong, deflated, and weak. You will never win an argument with your wife. If you think you have, it's because she wanted to get it over with and appease you, and she has collected it and stored it away on her hard drive of hurts. And then you will feel her withdrawal and withholding and walls for as long as she feels necessary after the argument. You will never win an argument with your wife when she's unhappy. And behind our walls and our stubbornness and our need to be right, we're incapable of coming to the table and having a mature, healthy, non-emotional conversation about a problem. Because with our walls, with our stubbornness, with our need to be right, with our selfishness and self-centeredness, we have no compassion. We have no ability to be neutral to an issue. Even with our ideas and beliefs and what we think is right, we can't be neutral to what another, our husbands, think or are bringing to the table. What typically happens is we twist what our husbands say into what we're hearing through our own emotional trigger to feel hurt and wronged or controlled. And in that, we create a literal emotional vortex in the environment that sucks everything out of our husbands and leaves them feeling wrong and potentially acting out of character for who they are as good men. The person who wrote in the question gives a great example of the arguing as an emasculation tool and creating an emotional vortex that has left him feeling wrong. Is that my wife stuffs and stacks issues she has with me and then stonewalls me for sometimes months on end, and I'm left to wonder what I did. And eventually, he didn't put this in the question, but I know what happens as a woman and working with women for the last decade. What happens is we stuff and stack the issues and keep stuffing and stacking and stuffing and stacking the issues to where it's like we're a pressure cooker and we eventually explode because we've been stuffing the issues and all the emotional charge we have in the issues. Then we become explosive. And that's where the arguments happen. And even if your wife denies this or a woman denies this, we have to know we like the arguments. We like the arguments because we can get hurt, emotionally hurt, not talking physical hurt. We can get emotionally hurt and then add whatever words were said, whatever doors were slammed, or our husband withdrawing and then not knowing what to do and walking away. We can get emotionally hurt and then add whatever happens in that argument to our hard drive of hurts that then we can use against you and justify and explain our unhappiness without having to look at ourselves. And we will actually provoke the arguments. And sometimes without saying anything at all. I would imagine in this scenario, again, I haven't talked to this man or know the ins and outs of their marriage, but I can imagine in this scenario with her stuffing and stacking that eventually he might blow his lid, be like, what's going on? And get really upset. That's one way that we will provoke and start the argument as women, Is the stonewalling, is the silent treatment, pushing our husbands and purposely getting them to a point, pushing them over the edge to where they explode. And then we can act calm as a cucumber of like, what are you talking about? I haven't said anything. I'm not upset. Look at you. You're the one losing it. We can start an argument calm as a cucumber, seemingly, but there's an emotional tornado that's creating emotional vortex in the environment while we're doing it. I was sharing with David, my mentor, as we were going over this morning. I was really good at this. Sorry, Dad. I was really good at this growing up as a teenager with my dad, of just like, I would be in trouble for something or caught red-handed lying, or I was very rebellious as a teenager. And my dad would address the issues, and I would just, I don't know, Dad. Like, why did you do this? Where were you? I drove by your friend's house. Your car wasn't there. I don't know. Or with like the deer in headlight look, like, I didn't do anything. And just get my dad all spun up. And of course, I've done that in my marriage and different relationships with men over the years before I was married. So we're very, very good at that as women, eliciting the arguments without even raising our voice. And then we can elicit words and anger from our husbands to be able to point the finger out, because this fuels our hurts and allows us to build our walls thicker and higher. And again, never have to look at ourselves. Where I'd like to go next in answering this question is 5 reasons women are never interested in conflict resolution. Conflict resolution means solving a contested issue in the relationship so that it doesn't happen again. Conflict resolution means solving a contested issue in the relationship so it doesn't happen again. As women, we have no interest in conflict resolution. We want to tell you how we are feeling and try to tell you why you're responsible for how horrible we are feeling. That's our idea of a conversation to resolve conflict, is spewing our feelings and blaming you and trying to get you to understand why you've made us feel this way and the things we need you to change and do to make us happy that will never make us happy, and that you're just supposed to sit there and listen to it. I talked to a man this week, bless him, and he and his wife have been having 2-hour conversations almost every day. And none of it's about his needs and desires or what he would like to do to solve the issues. It's her going over her Rolodex and hard drive of hurts and how she feels and how he's responsible for that and what he needs to change. That's not conflict resolution. It's coming to the table with the facts on the issue, each person sharing their concerns, and in most cases, compromise is necessary. So in conflict resolution, both parties must leave feeling heard and understood, and a resolution agreed upon that meets part of each person's needs and concerns, and it's a fair compromise. And that way the relationship can move forward. That's conflict resolution. So 5 reasons women are never interested in conflict resolution. Number 1, as women, if it's not our idea or our way, it's not happening. If it's not my idea or my way as a woman, it's not happening. Because no one's going to tell us what to do, and it's my way or the highway. And the really important piece in this is it not being our idea. Anything our husbands bring up as a potential compromise or resolution to the problem, it could be the most well thought out, logical solution to the problem that would absolutely work. But we will not agree to it because it's not our idea or our way. It's why some of the men listening, you can offer an idea in the relationship. Your wife shuts it down. And like 2 days later or a week later, she wants to do the idea you presented, but presents it as her idea. And you're left just totally confused and like, what just happened? It's total crazy making. If it's not our idea, we're not doing it. Number 2 of why as women we are never interested in conflict resolution. Women don't want problems solved. Number 2, women don't want problems solved. We need the problems to validate our unhappiness. And if it's solved, we have nothing to say of why we are unhappy in the relationship. So we actually want the problems. And that's very confusing to good men because you're problem solvers. Let's get the problem solved. And we double down in it because we need it to validate our unhappiness. I was reflecting on this the other day. So being happy in myself, not perfect, but happy in myself as a woman, having the dance with my husband, having a happy marriage. There's no problems. Yes, do life issues come up and challenges come up? Yeah, but we live in the dance. And we work together to solve the issues and have a good, happy marriage. And I was reflecting on this the other day and realizing how uncomfortable, I was like, oh, that's interesting, how uncomfortable it is as a woman to not have any problems. That's been the comfort zone that we live in our whole lives, is chaos and problems. When you're happy and you understand life and how life works and the reality of life and the challenges and the ups and downs, then life is known. I can't know exactly what's coming, but I can predict and think things through and have an idea of what's coming. And when you have a healthy relationship with yourself, which is what I define as being happy, there's never any problems. It's just life. And what are the tools that I need to use to resolve some of the issues, to navigate my way through it, to resolve my emotions, and things are good. So there's never any problems. And realizing that's very uncomfortable as a woman because we're used to the problems. We're used to things being negative. We're used to living in that unhappiness. And the good is actually really vulnerable because we don't know it, because we've just known the chaos and the problems. So I've learned in my journey that feeling the good, creating good in life for myself and in my marriage is a lot more vulnerable and exposing and uncomfortable than staying in the problems and the negative and continuing to create chaos. That's how different we are. Because I know men are listening going, huh? Why? We literally are wired very, very differently. That's what happens in our emotional wiring as women, whereas men, being pragmatic and problem solvers and logical, don't have this. Good men don't have this. So it is confusing. Number 3 of why women are never interested in conflict resolution. Women take everything as a personal attack. Every conflict, every issue brought up is a personal attack and affront. The reason we feel attacked when we have to talk about the issues is because we feel wrong, criticized, and hurt that we would have to look at anything about ourselves. So it feels like a personal attack. I can honestly say when my husband brings up an issue or calls something out in me, I'll have a little kind of internal, I don't like this. But I know that he is coming from a really good place. He's not trying to make me wrong. He's not finding fault. He understands his own wrongs and faults in himself. He's just bringing the issue up because he wants it solved. And he loves me and cares about me and cares about our relationship. It's what I tried to impart to women. If you're married to a good man, he's not trying to make you feel wrong. He's fighting for you and fighting for the marriage because he loves you and cares about you. Most men that write into me either to look at the course or get help or submit a question to be answered on an episode, almost always included in the forms that they fill out that I have available is, how do I help my wife be happy? When they want to address the issues, their priority in addressing the issues is their wives. It's so interesting. They'll share just the most awful things happening in the relationship that their wives are bringing into the marriage, and always end it. She's just the most loving, wonderful woman and mother. So they're always, ladies, if you're listening, good men, you are trying to solve the issues because they care about you and want you to be happy. And they want you to have a good life. That's where they're coming from. But we take everything as a personal attack. Number 4 of why women are never interested in conflict resolution. Number 4, women don't want to be accountable because we don't want to change and look at ourselves. I can't say it enough. Women don't want to be accountable because we don't want to change and look at ourselves. It's why we live in blame and finding fault in our husbands, is to avoid looking in the mirror. And why? Why don't we want to change? Because fundamentally for us as women, changing and having to look at ourselves and address the issues in ourselves makes us feel wrong, and it makes us see all of our flaws. And in our emotional wiring, we feel like an unfixable mess. We feel like an unfixable mess. The internal dialogue of a woman, if she's willing to be honest with herself and living in this internal emotional storm we have, and all the problems we've had in life, all the hurts we collect, all the blame we live in, the inner dialogue is, I am so broken that there's no place to begin to figure myself out. That's our internal dialogue. And that's why we don't want to be accountable. We are terrified to face all the issues in ourselves and all the shame we carry and all the feelings of being wrong, because what is that going to expose in me? And what am I going to have to face? And why would I want to face it anyway? Because I'm not going to be able to fix it. It's just another notch against me of why I'm so messed up. That's how we feel on the inside. That's why we don't want to be accountable. And the 5th reason that women don't want conflict resolution in marriage, women live on the fence in marriage. We live 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because we don't want to be committed. The issues, the unresolved issues, allow us to stay on the fence and allow us to stay uncommitted and daydreaming and fantasizing about some other life out there that would be happier, better, more fulfilling, what we are missing. We hold on to that, always thinking the grass is greener somewhere else. If the conflict and issues are resolved, we would have to get off the fence and be committed, because there would be no reason to be 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And living on the fence, again, fosters and reinforces our miserableness and indecisiveness. So we don't have to look at ourselves and create the lives that we want and the relationship we want with our husbands, where we would actually be happy. So those are the 5 reasons that a woman doesn't want conflict resolution. So the other part of the question was, how would conflict resolution look differently if we both claimed responsibility for our happiness? How would conflict resolution look differently if we both claimed responsibility for our happiness? Good man's fundamental nature is happy. He is generally content, understands the reality of life, understands the ups and downs, as a problem solver. So wants to solve the issues. And when a woman creates her own happiness and is responsible for her happiness, then they're two happy people. And happy people create happy marriages. What's necessary in that equation is a happy woman and a happy wife. When she can be happy in herself and come together with a good man who is good nature and generally happy in himself, then she aids in being able to be in that dance and create a happy marriage. This is what Adam, my husband, and I have. I'm happy in myself. Again, doesn't mean I'm perfect, but I'm happy. I have a good outlook on life. I feel good about myself. I have a healthy relationship with myself, and I want a happy marriage, and I'm committed to my husband. So we are able to come together to resolve the issues. There's no need for arguing, and we can solve the issues, move forward, and have an enjoyable experience together. And the dance that happens between a good man and a woman when she's happy in herself. And you work together. And it doesn't mean there might not be some ruffled feathers, but there's no arguing. There's an understanding and an appreciation of each other and how do we work together? What's important to you? This is what's important to me. And compromise. And what's going to be best for our marriage? And what's going to be best for our future and best moving forward. So it takes a woman being able to allow her husband to lead, putting away her need to be right, putting away her need to get things her way, and to be humble and work together with her husband as a mature adult who wants to take responsibility. So in getting to the solution, as I like to do, talking to the women first, this is a red pill moment. A moment to see the truth and reality of what we create as women in a marriage with a good man. And the red pill moment is seeing that we don't want the issues resolved. We actually want the problems, which is just kind of crazy, but it's true. And we want the problems. So when you see the truth of yourself as a woman and how you're showing up in the marriage and how you're contributing to the problems by not solving the problems, you have to decide you want to change. You have to eat the humble pie and recognize, oh, this is me. I see this in myself. And that's the first step in changing. When you can see it, you can do something about it. When you live in camp victim, denying and blaming your husband for the issues, you're trapped. You can't change because you're constantly waiting for him to change and then just recreating the problem, creating new problems, and that snowballs out and spirals, and that's what you live in your marriage. When you're willing to look at yourself, the only person you have any control over to change, then you have a path forward and you can decide, I don't want to do this anymore. And when you shine the light on it and you see it and you take responsibility for the behavior, that's where you can catch yourself. And a lot of you are doing that. I have women write in, thank you so much for your podcast. It's helping me so much. And you'll actually use the word, I'm catching myself. And that's because you're letting in these hard truths that then allow you to be self-aware and out of camp victim blaming and in camp take responsibility so you can actually change. And the tough pill to swallow for us as women is with a good man, which doesn't mean he doesn't have problems and issues, because we're all human and we've all got some problems and shortcomings and flaws. But with a good man, as a woman, I am the problem. A simple way to understand I am the problem with a good man is that if I'm unwilling to solve problems and I want problems, the problems never get solved. Therein, making me, as the woman with a good man who's a problem solver, the problem. So I don't want that. In order to have a happy marriage and be happy in marriage, you have to solve problems, which means you have to set your emotions and feelings aside And recognize that the personal attack you feel is you creating that. It is not your husband's intention. His intention is to fight for you in the marriage and solve the issues. So you have to be willing to go there and set the emotions aside, take a deep breath, and go there with him. There's a saying, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? If you want to be happy, you have to set aside your need as a woman to be right, or you will be stubborn and your husband will be talking to a brick wall. So the question, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? And for the men, the solution, you have to know the reality and the objectives of your wife as a woman when you have tough conversations trying to resolve issues. So a big challenge good men have is projecting onto their wives that we are like you, that we're coming to the table rational, logical, and fair-minded because that's you as a good man. And then you think or want your wife to be that way as a woman, but we're not. And you believe that as women and wives, we have the best interest of the marriage, but we're really only thinking of ourselves, and we're in our selfishness and self-centeredness. So you have to know, in an argument with your wife, you're trying to talk about things and she spins up the emotional vortex and is being emotional and making you wrong and pointing out all your faults and flaws. You have to stop listening, trying to make valid points of what she's saying and trying to fix the issue from that angle in her perspective. You have to know she's being irrational and emotionally driven and out to make you wrong and blame you for the problems. So it's not about making her wrong and being a victim to that. It's an objective understanding of your wife as a woman to be able to manage and navigate the best you can in the conflicts and in the issues. But one of the biggest mistakes good men make that I see time and time again is because you're rational and logical, you think what your wife is bringing to the table is rational and logical because you're seeing her through the lens of who you are as a good man, and you have to see her as a woman. And now I know she's not being rational, and of course good men are reasonable and willing to consider some of the things their wife brings up, but don't get caught in the gaslighting and manipulation and her being emotional, creating a problem where there's not a problem, or trying to see there's any validity in what she's saying from that irrational, emotional place so that you can be objective in it. Good men also need to understand your wife isn't right. Even though we make you believe that we are, and we're really, really good at finding fault in you, and then you feeling, oh, well, I have done that, and then getting sucked into that and gaslit into believing you are the problem. You have to know your wife is not right. She's not the judge of you, and she's not the expert in marriage or relationships. Women are very poor at relationships, regardless of what we have bought into as a culture and society, that we're the emotionally attuned ones and we're the nurturing ones and we know what a relationship is supposed to look like. We're not good at relationships because we're not good at the relationship with ourselves. So we can't be with anyone else. Good men are actually very natural at relationships and understand what a healthy relationship looks like and compromise and give and take and the things that are necessary to have a healthy marriage. As I've said before, we would be very wise as women to let our husbands as good men lead because they know what a healthy relationship looks like and what's needed for it. Good men have to know your wife is not right. And that when you find things in her that need to change and need to be worked on, she won't have it. She's very good at finding fault in you and pointing those faults out to you. But if you bring up any faults in her, World War III. And if your wife does agree to resolution, you have to understand it's to get it over with and appease you. How good men can know that is when you think you've come to a resolution with your wife and an agreement and you think the problem is solved, you can watch that she has no follow through, that her word is no good. And then you're left feeling confused. We talked about this. We came to an agreement. She's still doing the old thing. But she agreed to do the new thing to solve the issue. Then you can know she didn't have any intention to resolve the problem. She just wanted to get the conversation over with and not feel like she's in trouble and wanted to appease you. So the job of a good man in a marriage is to see the reality of his wife as a woman. Most of you are married to women that have these issues on a spectrum and are either middle of the road or lower end. And some of you are married to women with these issues on the high end of the spectrum. But you have to learn to navigate with your wife as a woman and not making excuses for her behavior, but having reasonable expectations, managing the relationship so that you don't get trapped and can't victim of why is she this way and she's doing this to me, which will leave you angry, resentful, and weak. So you have to see the reality and navigate with your wife as a woman, understanding we are wired differently. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. If you haven't, go check me out on YouTube, Rumble, and X. You can find the links in the description below to connect with me there. For those women listening who know you are the problem and want a path forward to take responsibility and change your own inner turmoil and unhappiness, I have a course for women called the Happiness Program, which is the solution to the unhealthy relationship you have with yourself and the issues and challenges you have in your life and your marriage. You can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. And for the good men listening who want a solution to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to your wife, I have a course for you too called the Marriage Rescue Course for Good Men Only that teaches you how to rebuild your strength and confidence as a good man so that you can navigate the relationship with your wife in a healthy, constructive way. Again, you can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you soon.